Hey, what the hell is happening now with you in the face and the what now? Hey, I'm Nick Digilio. Thanks for checking out my YouTube channel. It's free. Pretty much daily videos provided. And check me out on Patreon. That's a great way to help out. I want to keep the videos coming. And I want to keep the content coming. I need your help to do that. This is all DIY stuff. So any little bit of help can help. Any little bit of help can help? Yeah, any little bit of dough can help. Patreon.com/NickDShow. Patreon.com/NickDShow. Donate today. Keep these videos going on Patreon, and you get extra bonus stuff that nobody else will get. So donate, pick a tier, $3, $9, $25 a month. And not only will you get these videos and more, but you will get exclusive content, behind-the-scenes stories of what really happened at WGN. Not the crap, the real story about what happened at GN that nobody else is going to be getting, and it's the truth, by the way. And some other bonuses that we're going to get, some swag and some live streaming and things like that down the line. But you got to help out, and it would be awesome if you did. I'd really, really, really appreciate it. It would help a lot. So a little dough would be cool. Patreon.com/NickDShow. Patreon.com/NickDShow. And my podcast every Tuesday, every Friday. That's free. You can check that out at RadioMisfits.com as part of the Radio Misfits podcast network. It's the Nick D Podcast every Tuesday, Friday. Okay, so last night I went to go see a movie called The Cursed. Ooh. And I guess it's a movie that it's been around for a couple of years. They shot it a little while ago, and it played a couple of film festivals. I know that Eric and Steve, who do movie reviews with me on my podcast, they saw it, I don't know, one of the fucking film festivals, the Sundance or the Toronto or the Lily Pad. I don't know. Anyway, they saw it at one of those goddamn festivals. And it was called 8 for Silver at that time. 8, the number 8. Not, I just had a meal 8, but 8 for Silver. And, you know, all indications is that it's a werewolf movie, that it was going to be a werewolf movie. And I was looking forward to it because I like werewolf movies, and I love Kelly Riley. Ooh, do I like Kelly Riley. I love Kelly Riley, and I don't watch Yellowstone. Apparently, I should watch Yellowstone. I don't know. For me, the only Yellowstone is where that asshole bear is stealing people's food. That's the only Yellowstone that I know about. No, that's Jellystone. Sorry. What an asshole. All right, Yellowstone, Jellystone, what the fuck's the difference? Anyway, I don't watch it, mainly because I'd like to punch Kevin Costner right in the mouth. So that's why I haven't watched Yellowstone. I still haven't gotten over the fact that Dances with Wolves beat Goodfellas for Best Picture, and that Kevin Costner, who is a shitty director, beat Martin Scorsese for Best Director that year. Still haven't gotten over it. It's almost like, you know, it's like 35 years ago, and I'm still pissed off about it. Anyway, so Yellowstone, I don't watch it, but Kelly Riley, really terrific British actress, who is very nice to look at, and also a very good actress. If you've not seen her in Robert Zemeckis' brilliant Flight, the movie Flight with Denzel Washington, which is a fucking great film. A great film. And for my money, the best performance Denzel's ever given. She's amazing in that. Anyway, she's in this movie, The Curse, this werewolf movie. So I go see it yesterday, only it's not really a werewolf movie. It's not. It's like if John Carpenter's The Thing had sex with, oh, I don't know, Barry Lyndon, this would happen. The Cursed would happen. If Downton Abbey fucked The Thing, this would be their child. It takes place in the late 18th century, or I'm sorry, early 19th century. Late 19th century. What the fuck? It's 1880s it takes place. And it's about this really brooding, impossibly sexy Quincy M.E. of the 19th century. Old Quincy, because he's a pathologist, played by Boyd Holbrook, who shows up at this French estate in the late 1800s because there have been like animal attacks, and he is going to investigate, and he discovers that there is this curse that's been given down. But it's basically like this very sexy, brooding 19th century Quincy M.E. Tries to solve the mystery of this really slimy wolf-like creature that's killing people, and this all happens during like war, a cholera pandemic, indigenous genocide, like backroom political dealings, an unspoken sexual attraction. So it's like a, you know, like a 19th century costume drama, only a slimy creature is ripping people apart. It's directed and written by a guy named Sean Ellis, who I'm not really familiar with, but I really like this movie. It's a very strange movie, as I mentioned. You know, like Barry Lyndon and The Thing kind of screw, and this is what happens. Costume drama with slimy, creepy effects. But it's really beautifully shot, and there are some incredible sequences in the movie, Sean Ellis. There's a sequence where an indigenous people's village is invaded by a bunch of asshole soldiers and burnt to the ground. That's all done in one take. There's a lot of really, it's creepy. There are great nightmare sequences in it. It's a very, very creepy movie. I liked it very much. Kelly Riley's wasted in the film. But overall, I liked it. I thought that the main character, I thought that Boyd Holbrook, who played the steamy, sexy, late 1800s Mr. Darcy kills monsters kind of shit. I was waiting for them to screw, but it never happened. Kelly Riley, and it never happened. It should have. It was all set up, but it never happened. That was the biggest disappointment about it. But I thought it was cool. It was very original. It was really weird. You don't see movies like this every day. But it's not a werewolf movie. I just want to make that clear. It's not a werewolf movie, but that got me to thinking about werewolf movies. Let's talk about werewolf movies, shall we? You have no choice. I'm going to talk about them. I got some werewolf movies. You ever see some werewolf? I like werewolf movies. I love them. My favorite universal monster of all time, of all of them, is the Wolfman. When I was a little kid, I used to tiptoe around the house on my tiptoes to simulate him on his paws, tiptoeing through the foggy moors. So the Wolfman was my favorite with Lon Chaney. That was my favorite. So I love that movie, the original Wolfman, 1941. Love it. I love Frankenstein meets the Wolfman. Any of the early Universal movies with the Wolfman in it, I love. I love them. So that's my favorite as a child. It's my favorite. I don't think it's the best werewolf movie ever made. It's a good movie, the original Werewolf Wolfman from 1941. It's a good movie. I wouldn't put it in the upper echelon of great werewolf movies. But let's go through some werewolf movies. How about Werewolves on Wheels? Yeah, man, Werewolves on Wheels. Combination crazy ass. Leave it to early 70s. So everybody was coked up and on horse and on drugs and smoking, blowing weed. So of course somebody's going to come up with Werewolves on Wheels. 1971, it was hot to ride. Motorcycle movies were hot and all that shit. Easy Rider and all that. So why not take Easy Rider and put werewolves on motorcycles? It's a piece of shit, but it's funny. All right, The Beast Must Die. This is from Amicus Films, British film company that was trying to compete with Hammer, especially in the anthology horror market, where they would make anthology horror movies with 3 or 4 or 5 different horror stories in one movie. Well, this isn't that. This is one story. But it's a werewolf / Agatha Christie mystery. With Calvin Lockhart as like this guy who has a whole bunch of people on his estate, one of which there's murders, and one of them is a werewolf, and they're going to find out who the werewolf is. Peter Cushing's in this movie as well. And Peter Cushing, I think, read the script and said, yeah, this is shit, but it's going to be fun, and he has a blast. So Peter Cushing, of course, rules in it, because Peter Cushing is the coolest man that ever lived, and he rules in everything. But it's a very ridiculous movie. Sven Gulli has shown it a few times, and it has this thing called the werewolf break, where they give you like a 90-second break in the movie where they literally stop the movie and say, it's time for the werewolf break. Where they stop the movie and you have 90 seconds to look at each suspect and figure out which one's the werewolf. Fucking ridiculous movie, but fun. So that's The Beast Must Die. Teen Wolf with Michael J. Fox. He shot that movie about a year before he did Back to the Future, and it was a piece of shit that should have gone straight to video. But when Back to the Future came out, became like the biggest movie ever, and he became like, the biggest TV star and the biggest movie star of all time. They released it, and now it's like considered a classic. It's a piece of shit. Teen Wolf is terrible. If you like it, you're dumb. I know you probably like it because you were a kid when you saw it. All right, okay. I also liked Kiss when I was a kid. Doesn't mean they're not the worst band on the planet. But anyway, Teen Wolf 2 came out with the Bateman guy, the Jason Bateman. And now he looks back at that when he became like a serious star. Now he's on that. By the way, Ozark blows. I just want to say that. Ozark is a terrible TV show. Anyway, but Arrested Development, all that stuff. So he did the sequel. They both suck. There's Wolf with Jack Nicholson, Michelle Pfeiffer, James Spader, directed by Mike Nichols. Oddly, I hated this movie. I hated it. And it's weird because I love Mike Nichols. Mike Nichols is not only a great comedian, a great improviser, was a great comedian, great improviser, terrific writer, and a really great filmmaker. And I hated Wolf. I hated it. Nicholson, obviously, is Jack Nicholson. Michelle Pfeiffer. I worship Michelle Pfeiffer. I love her. And James Spader, by the way, great in the movie. But there's a real condescending attitude to this movie, to Wolf with Jack Nicholson. It was like Mike Nichols, who I normally love, clearly thought the material was beneath him. Well, I'm making a werewolf movie. Well, werewolf movies are awesome, late, great Mike Nichols, so don't be condescending prick. It's a very condescending movie to the genre that it's supposed to be embracing. It's like everybody involved was like, all right, we'll make this werewolf movie. It's beneath us. So it's got a real condescending attitude. The only one that seems to be having fun and embracing the genre and the character is James Spader. Spader's great in it. The movie sucks, and it's really it's made by people who hate werewolf movies. Fuck off. Except Michelle Pfeiffer. I love you. All right, here's a great one, Wolfen. Based on a great novel. Whitley Strieber wrote the novel. Directed by Michael Wadley, who directed Woodstock. Yeah, the documentary, the concert film, Woodstock. And this is a really moody, awesome werewolf movie with Albert Finney, the great Albert Finney. And this was made right around the time he was making sort of a big comeback. He had done, in the 60s and early 70s, he'd done a lot of movies, then he took a bunch of time off and did stage, but came back with, like Looker and, of course, Shoot the Moon. And this was in that period, Wolfen. Really great movie that ties in to indigenous people and legends and things like that. Very, very cool movie, Wolfen. Great one. I like the remake of The Wolfman, the Universal remake of The Wolfman from 2010 with Benicio del Toro and Anthony Hopkins. In fact, I love it. I think it's great. And that was when Universal was going to start remaking all of the classic Universal horror movies. Your Frankensteins and your, Wolfman, your Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and the Mummy and all that stuff. And they were going to remake all of them. That never really happened. And it was received poorly, which I don't understand, because I think it's a terrific movie. If you've not seen the Benicio del Toro 2010 remake of The Wolfman, it's fucking great. It really is really terrific. I wish they would have made more of them. Werewolf of London, Henry Hall, legendary movie from the early 30s that precedes the Lon Chaney Wolfman movie by about 6 years. And it's great. And it also has one of the best, like the Wolfman design makeup is just legendary from the 1941. But this was a little bit different. You could see the face a little bit better. Henry Hall was part of the design of the makeup because he was such a good actor that he wanted his face to be seen under the makeup. And Werewolf of London is a great movie, a moody one, a really terrific, like 1930s classic moody black and white horror monster movie. Great one, Werewolf of London, great. And it inspired a great song by the great Warren Zevon. The Company of Wolves, fucking great movie, directed by Neil Jordan, one of the greatest directors on the planet. And one of the lords of Ireland, as far as I'm concerned, makes great movies. The Company of Wolves was a great sort of combination fairy tale, Little Red Riding Hood, parable, really scary, really funny, with great transformation makeup effects. And a lot of these movies that I'm going to be mentioning, the werewolf genre is really the genre that started the whole transforming into a creature thing. Like in the original Wolfman, it was all done, with the time lapse photography, where they would add a little bit more hair and a little bit more makeup to Lon Chaney's face as it looked like it dissolved into this monster. And all of these creature transformation scenes really took off in the genre of werewolf movies. The Company of Wolves has fucking great makeup effects in it. It's creepy and scary and also clever, and a great fairy tale satire, and also really scary. Company of Wolves, great movie. Silver Bullet, talked about this before with the great Gary Busey. I talked about this movie when I told the story of hanging out with Gary Busey for a week. That video is here somewhere. Scroll down. If you want to hear about what it's like to hang out with Gary Busey for 7 nights in a row, if you think it's going to be insane, multiply that by 1,000,000, and you're in the ballpark of insanity. But Gary Busey's in it. One of the little Corys, I think it's the hamster, is in it. And it's a silver bullet werewolf movie. Really cool werewolf movie. Really funny, based on Stephen King. Silver bullet, good one. Let's see, Ginger Snaps. The two ladies in Ginger Snaps are lovely. They've come to the Flashback Horror Convention in the past. They're really, really cool. They're a lot of fun. And the movie, the first one especially, the second one's good too, but the first Ginger Snaps, great female werewolf movie. Sexy and funny, great makeup effects, great kills, and the two girls in it are fucking great. Ginger Snaps, classic modern werewolf movie. Let's see, what else do we got? Dog Soldiers. This is Neil Marshall's movie. Neil Marshall, another filmmaker that I absolutely adore. Responsible for one of the scariest movies of the early aughts, The Descent, about the girls creeping around in caves and the little creatures, the monsters, the terrifying monsters that are in that. Well, Dog Soldiers is a movie he made before that about these British soldiers who are in the Scottish the Scottish Outlands, and they encounter a bunch of werewolves, and it's like combination war soldier movie with werewolves. It's called Dog Soldiers. Great makeup effects, great werewolves. The werewolves are really cool looking, and really scary, beautifully done. Dog Soldiers, one of the best sort of werewolfish movies that's been made in a while. What else do we got? We've got okay, so I guess we're gonna get to my two favorite. Now, I do want to mention that the Twilight movies and the Underworld movies all feature werewolves, but the Twilight movies and the Underworld movies all fucking suck. It's an embarrassment to werewolves everywhere for both of those movies. Vampires and werewolves should be embarrassed. All of you vampires out there and you werewolves who are watching this, I bet when somebody mentions Twilight or Underworld, all of you vampires and all of you werewolves go, fuck those movies. Ugh, no, they do not represent us. They do not represent us. Twilight movies blow. All the Underworld movies blow. And the vampires and the werewolves in those movies all suck. So fuck Twilight and fuck the Underworld movies because they all suck. Okay, let's get to some of my favorite. Now, Curse of the Werewolf is maybe my favorite werewolf movie of all time. It's up there. It's in the top 3. Curse of the Werewolf is Oliver Reed. It's Hammer's take on the werewolf genre. And Hammer, of course, is the British film company that took on all the legendary Universal monsters, brought them into the 50s and into the 60s in blazing color with lots of blood, lots of boobs, Peter Cushing, Christopher Lee, all of that stuff. Hammer movies are my favorite. That's when I really realized that there was no turning back. I loved horror movies, and it was all because of Hammer, Peter Cushing especially, and boobs and color and Technicolor. Curse of the Werewolf was their first big werewolf movie. Starred Oliver Reed, who's another one of my favorite actors that's ever lived. I adored Oliver Reed. He was the best. And he is the werewolf in this. The werewolf makeup in Curse of the Werewolf is my favorite werewolf design. My favorite werewolf makeup design of all time is Curse of the Werewolf with Oliver Reed. Of all time. And I'm including all the modern stuff where actual transformations and blah, blah, blah. My favorite werewolf makeup ever, without question, is Curse of the Werewolf with Oliver Reed. It's a great movie, great performance in it. It's got all the great things that you find in Hammer movies. The big, crazy color, the great murders, the over-the-top soap opera style, fantastic acting, quality kills, boobs, fantastic. Not boobs, but cleavage, I should say. Cleavage, every scene. So that's a great Hammer movie, one of my favorite horror movies of all time, one of my favorite Hammer movies of all time, and without question, my very favorite makeup werewolf makeup effects of all time. Curse of the Werewolf, Oliver Reed. My second favorite in the genre. Now, I'll do these two at the same time. These are the two big ones, and they're from the 80s when the makeup effects became bigger and bolder and crazier. I mentioned The Thing earlier. Rob Bottin's makeup in that movie, and John Carpenter's The Thing, is the bar upon everything that everything should be. It's raised to. That's the one. Those are the makeup effects from the 80s. The practical, insane, latex, crazy makeup effects that were so popular in the 80s. That's the movie that everything gets compared to. But Rob Bottin did do the effects for a horror movie, a werewolf movie, a year earlier, and that's Joe Dante's The Howling. And the other one that came out about 8 months later is John Landis's An American Werewolf in London, which many people consider to be the best werewolf movie ever made. It's up there. It's not my favorite, but it's up there. David Naughton, Griffin Dunne play two Americans who go to London. They get attacked by a wolf on the moors, and then David Naughton survives and he becomes a werewolf and starts killing people. Jenny Agutter shows her tits, and I love that. It's got great use of music, and it is a great movie. There's a lot of scary stuff in it, a lot of funny stuff in it. There's an insane couple of nightmare sequences that involve Nazi monsters, like slicing throats and blowing people away with machine guns, that I still to this day are fucking insane. I don't know what John Landis was on, cocaine. I don't know what he was on at the time, but yeah, those nightmare scenes in there. And great makeup effects. Rick Baker did the makeup effects for An American Werewolf in London. The legendary transformation sequence that takes place with David Naughton in the fully lit, it's not done in the dark like a lot of transformation scenes, fully lit apartment. On the floor, he transforms into a werewolf. It's widely considered the greatest werewolf transformation sequence of all time, and considered maybe the best werewolf movie of all time. I love An American Werewolf in London. I love it. I've seen it 80 billion times. I saw it 20 times in the theater when it came out easily. It's a legendary classic movie, and the transformation scene is unbelievable. The Rick Baker makeup is incredible. The Rick Baker makeup with Griffin Dunne's slowly decaying, mutilated body, great. And I love it. But I prefer The Howling, and I know I'm in the minority on this. I know that you're probably screaming at your screen right now. I think Joe Dante's The Howling is a better movie than American Werewolf in London. I do, and I think the big transformation sequence in The Howling, done by Rob Bottin, directed by Joe Dante, is better than the transformation sequence in American Werewolf in London. I know it's darker, and maybe the effects are a little bit better because it was filmed a year later in American Werewolf in London, but the transformation sequence in The Howling is creepier, grosser, more awesome, and even funnier actually too. And overall, I prefer The Howling. The Howling, I think, is my favorite werewolf movie of all time. Curse of the Werewolf, The Hammer one, and The Wolfman, American Werewolf in London. Those are the best of all time. But I think my favorite, personally, is Joe Dante's The Howling. I think it's the best werewolf movie ever made. It's scary, the effects are jaw-dropping and awesome, and they push the envelope like Rob Bottin did. It's also really funny. John Sayles co-wrote it, and it's loaded with great cameos and inside jokes. The kind of shit that you see in a great Joe Dante movie. Joe Dante is a movie maker who loves movies, especially genre movies, especially stuff like werewolf movies. And he puts his heart and soul into this. And I love it. It's a great satire. It's funny. It's lovely. It is a great tribute to a great genre, the werewolf genre. Dee Wallace is great in it. There's a million people in the movie, cameos and great character actors and all kinds of cool stuff. And again, Rob Bottin's makeup effects. The wolves are really cool looking. The ending is amazing. The final moment where Dee Wallace transforms into a really cute werewolf with tears in her eyes. So my favorite werewolf movie of all time, and I know to say that the Howling is better than American Werewolf in London. I know that's sacrilege, and all the hardcore horror fans are like, "Fuck you, Nick. You don't know what you're talking about." Sorry, that's just me. I think The Howling is better than American Werewolf in London. Always have, always will. So, anyway, werewolf movies are awesome. They're great, and for so many different reasons. For the allegory of what they're really about. There's a lot of sexual undertones in that, of also, what it's like to go through sexual changes, and some of it is about an allegory for puberty. Some of it is about keeping, the male sexual drive, down, because we're all fucking animals. Basically, that's another theme that it's about. There's also great performances throughout, like Lon Chaney Jr., Larry Talbot is a legendary character, and a lot of the guys and the women who have played werewolves over the years have a lot of fun with those roles and dig deep, really sink their teeth into it, into it, and it's a great genre and great creatures. The creature of the werewolf, the monster of the werewolf. one of the greatest monsters ever created. So I love werewolf movies. I love werewolves. My very first favorite Universal monster was the Wolfman, and I love him. And I guess my favorite werewolf movie of all time is The Howling. I mean, it's real close because Curse of the Werewolf, as I mentioned a bunch of them. But yeah, Joe Dante's The Howling. To me, if someone were to say you have to pick one werewolf movie to watch for the rest of your life, it would not be American Werewolf in London. Sorry, even though I love it, adore it, it's The Howling. So. All right, so that's it. Talk about werewolf movies. But I want you to know, The Cursed is not a werewolf movie. I thought it was. It's not really a werewolf movie. So, you might want to adjust your expectations. It's good. It's actually really good. The Cursed, the new horror movie, The Cursed. It's really, really good and worth seeing. But it's not a werewolf movie. Anyway, werewolves are awesome. All right? Okay. Enjoy the veal.